Jon Stewart returned to the airwaves last night to confront the results of the election. And there's one explanation for why Trump won, why the Democrats got beat. It's floated around out there that he doesn't buy. And he says that they did get, in his words, shellacked, but not for one of the reasons that you might be hearing. And it has to do with the idea that the Democrats have just been too woke. And if you'd like an explanation for this theory, somewhere James Carville is talking about it right now. I don't know where, I don't know if he's on TV, but he's definitely talking about it as we film this. And he says, I only have one problem with the woke theory. He being Jon Stewart, not James Carville. I'm not in the mood to quote him. I just didn't recall seeing any Democrats running on woke-s. These were the commercials I saw for the Democrats, he said after showing a montage of Democrat campaign ads expressing conservative stances on immigration. Those are the Democrats. They didn't talk about pronouns. They didn't say Latinx. It was the opposite. He said they didn't do the woke thing. They acted like Republicans for the last 4 months. They wore camo hats and went to Cheney family reunions. Do you know how dangerous it is to wear a hunting hat around the Cheneys? Which is a bit of a throwback in terms of jokes these days, but I appreciate it. And he says Democrats were mostly running against an identity that was defined for them based on a couple months of post-George Floyd defund the police #MeToo Instagram posts from 4 years ago. The country felt like government wasn't working for them, the American people. And the Democrats in particular were taking their hard-earned money and giving it to people who didn't deserve it as much as them. And so the Democrats got shellacked. But in Jon Stewart's argument, not because they wouldn't stop talking about trans people or because like the Latinx thing is just such a throwback to like 12 years ago. Has Kamala Harris literally ever said Latinx? Have you ever, like, was it in one ad? But again, is it any surprise that people are like, hey, that thing I hated before the election, it's why the election didn't go well. Not to say that there's nothing to any of this, and I'm curious if you disagree, Garrison, but I've been trying to make this same case the last few days, and as always, Jon Stewart does a better version of it. But what do you think?
I think Jon Stewart, to my point earlier, is like the millennial left's Joe Rogan, and I think he says the thing just right here. What I will say is that I think a lot of pundits are confusing the way that Donald Trump's campaign leveraged the boogeyman of woke or DEI or CRT. I think they're confusing that with the reality of the Harris campaign. And that confusion, I think, is actually really important. It's important to kind of call that confusion or that conflation out, so that people are aware that this isn't, this isn't what she was saying. This is what they were saying about her, and there is a difference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Obviously, we're having a little bit of camera issues, but we'll figure it out. There have been worse still frames that people have been stuck on. Let me just say that. But anyway, yeah, I agree, and I would just say, like, I understand the general advice that, don't focus on things during a campaign that aren't popular. I get that as a general rule or whatever. I understand that. But the idea that if we only take this thing or these 2 or 5 things and we throw them overboard, then they're not gonna be able to attack us anymore. Let me just tell you, as a person that's been paying attention to presidential politics for a few years, that's not how it's gonna work. They're gonna attack you. They're gonna invent whatever they think they need to attack you. That's what they're going to do. Ceding ground to them has never, in my experience, resulted in them being like, oh, okay, well then you're cool. We're not gonna attack you anymore. We're not gonna demonize this group. We're not gonna try to get out the vote that way. That's just not how it works to me, or from my experience. But Garrison, since it looks like we fixed it, or you fixed it.
Yeah.
Do you think that this argument, well, really, give me your general thoughts, but also the anti-woke argument, like, we can debate it. Do you think the Democrats are gonna come away thinking, yeah, maybe we need to do more to attack trans people or whatever?
I think the Democrats very likely will come away from this election thinking that running a black woman is a bad idea, that running on things that even could be twisted and perceived as woke is a bad idea. And I despise the term in general. I think it's a complete misuse of the term. I think white people, conservatives, Christopher Rufo specifically, has taken that term and bastardized it and made it to mean something that it does not mean within my community, which is where it comes from. But that said, that all aside, there's a very real possibility that Democrats will come to the wrong conclusions, in my opinion, and continue to alienate the people most likely to vote for them. I think, coming back to this point earlier, and I know we'll move on, but coming back to this point of persuasion earlier, when Kamala Harris is out on the campaign trail with Liz Cheney, she is making a very specific calculation about who she can persuade to vote for her. And we've seen that just did not quite materialize. It didn't come together the way that they thought it would come together. But there are people, specifically people of color, the Latinx community, trans people.
Oh no, you've done it again. We just lost 2028.
We just lost it. I'm sorry. But those people are likely to vote for a Democrat because the Democrat's not actively trying to take away their rights in the same way. And so I think it's important to recognize who you're trying to win and have a vision or a theory of winning that maybe what isn't always present here. That's all I'll say about that.
Okay, I agree. And look, in the same way that you were critiquing the way the word woke is deployed, and I share your frustration over that. I've been railing against the use of the term identity politics. Isn't it interesting that for all of the critics of Harris's strategy of going after like the Nikki Haley voters or the Liz Cheney voters or whatever, and there's a lot, even those critics don't refer to that as playing identity politics, although like, how is that? Like, you're going for old school conservatives frustrated with Donald Trump and the path of their party. Like, how is that not a core part of someone's identity? Like, again, the way we deploy it, the stuff that gets roped under there and the stuff that's allowed to skate free, I find so frustrating. Like, again, I'll just remind everyone I said yesterday, like, appealing to women to vote for you is identity politics, but appealing to men to vote for you is not. That seems kind of messed up. And I don't think it's difficult to understand why. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.